What is this? A Why I Want video in the middle of the week? Well, spoiler alert, there are so many prospects in this NHL draft that I want to talk about, and we don't have enough Sundays to fulfill all of the spots before the NHL draft. So, like this video, we might see a few more Why I Wants sprinkled in throughout the middle of the week so we get the separation in time between each of the episodes to the most appropriate amount possible. And we're kicking things off here with another guy that could be one of the sleeper top 10, maybe top 11, 12-ish picks in this year's NHL draft. He's going to be a first-rounder. He plays with another player who is going to be a first-rounder in Matthew Savoie, and his name is one you might be familiar with because his brother was one of the first NHL players ever taken by the Seattle Kraken in their expansion draft. Let's talk today about Morgan Geekie's brother, Conor Geekie. Now, you can see on Elite Prospects, there is no profile photo available, which is unfortunate, but Conor Geekie is indeed the subject of today's Why I Want. Going over to the profile, he is an 18-year-old forward, 6'4", 205, as a left-handed shot, born May 5th, 2004. He's a big guy, and if you go over to the consolidated ranking over here in Elite Prospects, he's ranked on average by all of these scouting outlets at the 15th overall spot. Elite Prospects has him at 19, Fish Considerations at 14, Bob McKenzie has him at 10, Craig Button at 31, so there's a big dichotomy there with the TSN folks. McKean's has him at 8, so that's an extremely high ranking compared to Craig Button's 31. He is the 5th best North American skater by NHL Central Scouting. Sportsnet also has him at 10, Recruit at 14, Dauber at 29, so they're a lot more pessimistic on him in his profile. Draft Prospects at 13, Smart Scouting at 30, and 13th by the Puck Authority. This is a guy who has one of the more varied ratings throughout this year's draft, as he could go, in some people's eyes, as high as number 8. He could go as low in other people's eyes as the end of the first round, if not maybe even the early second, if he's unlucky. Let's go over the differences in his draft ranking profile, why some have him so high, and why others have him a lot lower. Conor Geekie, as we said, was a big forward, he's a center, and he is a left-handed shot who played for the Winnipeg Ice this season in the WHL. Now, just to clear things up, because the WHL was his home for the past few years, he started out in the WHL in 2019-2020, where, after being drafted second overall by the Winnipeg Ice in the Bantam draft, one spot behind Matthew Savoie, who was also taken by the Ice, he made his debut that year, getting 7 games played. He had 0 points, so not really that big of a deal. The next season, though, the WHL did not start until the halfway point of the year, where he returned and had himself a point per game. Earlier on, though, he played in the MJHL, which is junior hockey in Manitoba, where he didn't produce all too much. He had 4 points in 9 games. The production he had in the WHL was a lot better, and if you head over to this season, his point totals took an even bigger step. In 63 games with the Winnipeg Ice, Conor Geekie had 70 points, 24 goals, 46 assists, and he was under a point per game in the WHL playoffs. If you go over to the entire WHL and his point production numbers right there, sure, Conor Geekie was not the number 1 point producer amongst all the WHL guys. Matthew Savoie had 90 points in 65 games. Jaeger Furcus out of the Warriors had 80 points. Connor Bedard is absolutely bananas, but he's not even eligible for this year's draft. So just seeing the fact that guys this year, Matthew Savoie, who could be a top 10 pick, and Conor Geekie, who is a top 10 pick in some people's eyes, had 90 and 70 points each, but Bedard had 100 and he's a year younger, yeah, it doesn't really take a genius to see how good Bedard is. But getting back over to Geekie, even though he wasn't the top guy in this year's WHL crop of eligible players, he still was one that has so much projectability with how he plays the game. This is because in the offensive zone, not only is he a big guy, but he's a skilled guy too. He reads the offensive zone very well, he's dangly, he's got some skills with the puck, he can shoot, he can score, he can set guys up, and when he's reading the play as it develops in front of him in the offensive zone, he is one of the better players in this entire draft when it comes to just knowing what's going to happen, knowing where players are going to be, knowing where he needs to be, and setting up offense accordingly. If Conor Geekie pans out to the best of his potential, this could be a number one center who produces points like crazy in the NHL, who commands physical space on the ice because of his frame, and who takes advantage of his size to open up passing lanes, to create scoring opportunities for his teammates, and who just overall allows guys on his line to rove around the ice, receive some pucks, and put them in the back of the net. Plus the fact that he is a good shooting option himself who can snipe pucks when he needs to, plus his ability to dangle guys when he needs to, that includes goaltenders. Conor Geekie is a very good offensive tool. However, this is a player whose skating really holds him back, plus the fact that his engagement levels in the defensive and neutral zone when he doesn't have the puck is questionable as well. Here are some scouting reports on mynhldraft.com. Ryan Kennedy of the Hockey News says that scouts call Conor Geekie a big rig, and his combination of size and skill is so tantalizing. Still developing on a loaded ice squad, I wouldn't be surprised if a team jumps at him early thanks to the long-term potential. Nick Richard of Dobber Prospects says his skating, stride, and overall pace still require improvement, but his puck skills, shot, and offensive vision are worth taking a swing on. It doesn't hurt that he has the size NHL teams covet down the middle. Sam Constantino says he projects as a skilled power forward. The skill part is evident now, while the power forward part is a work in progress. Peter Barcini says that he has soft hands to make moves in tight spaces as well as a great release when he's in the shooting lane. The downside to his game is his skating, but that is something he continues to work on. Scott Wheeler of The Athletic says he's got impressive hands and body control for his size, which helps him control pucks inside the offensive zone and make plays, while also getting the upper hand in board battles. And Josh Bell of Future Consideration says that Savoie's teammate remains a very promising prospect, thanks to his high-end hockey sense and his ability to take advantage and capitalize on opponents' mistakes. His effort level has wavered through November, and his skating needs improvement, but he will need to show more consistency or risk sliding further. This is why there's such a difference in how he's being ranked. Those who have him in the top 10 are saying, yeah, this is a player whose offensive potential and projectable ceiling are so high that I want to take a swing on that. This is a big dude, a powerful dude, a skilled shooting and passing dude, and even though the skating is a work in progress, you draft prospects based off of their ceilings and potential, and this guy's got a ceiling and he's got potential for sure. Then you have the opposition that says, okay, even though he does have a ceiling, the likelihood of him fulfilling that is significantly reduced when you talk about the deficiencies in his skating and his work ethic. Now, I get it, even though a ceiling is there, some people might go out there and say that the likelihood of him fulfilling that ceiling is not all too potent. Therefore, it leads to draft rankings like the ones that we see from Craig Button and other scouting outlets where he is in the 30s or the late 20s. Some have him at 8th overall, some have him at 31. This is probably one of the bigger ranges of prospects in the entire draft, mostly because if he works, he's going to work out great. But if he works and he becomes what he could be at the NHL level, at the top tier, it would be because there'd be so much growth that is so unpredictable to try to project at this point. I do think that Conor Geekie is at the very least going to be a third-line center, though. Like, even if his skating doesn't improve and his work ethic issues don't fix themselves up as he ascends to higher levels of play, this is still a player that is skilled enough to be in the NHL and who has a frame that is big enough to also have some minutes at the top league. I think at the very least you have an NHL talent here, it's just whether or not he improves on his footwork and mobility is going to determine how far he goes. And so when you take a look at what Conor Geekie's floor could be and the likelihood of him staying at that floor, you have to ask yourself, if you're at 8th or 9th or 10th overall, are you willing to take that risk? Are you a lot more optimistic on this guy? Do you think he's going to go out there and improve his skating? This is what the Smart Scouting report on smartscouting.com says for Conor Geekie. The writer here, Matthew Soma, says that he believes Geekie can be a top-line center in the NHL if his skating gets to be NHL average or better. There are times when he is completely enamored with Geekie's skill level, but if he is being honest, he hasn't liked Geekie very much this season. He sees the skill that others are seeing, and it's easy to look at Geekie's highlights and say, man, this kid has it. But when the writer watches Geekie play, they see an underwhelming player with very obvious flaws in his game that will affect his NHL chances. He doesn't want to call Geekie a lazy player, but his efforts in the defensive zone can definitely look lazy at times. Then there's the issue of whether or not Geekie is an NHL center moving forward. It's a major concern of Matthews that Geekie is not dictating the play when he's on the ice. He doesn't even carry the puck into the zone. I see him waiting for the play to come around to him instead of actively seeking opportunities, making me question if he can be more than just a complimentary player at the NHL level. And so, when it comes down to all these concerns, it really boils down to a melting pot that asks you, the viewer out there watching this video, where do you think Conor Geekie should be drafted? If you think he's a top 10 talent because of his ceiling, hey, go out and let me know in the comments what you think. But if you think he should be taken later because the uncertainty is just too high, that's also a valid opinion I think as well, so let me know in the comments where you lie on that front. And finally, if your favorite team is in the first round, which most of yours are, do you want to see Conor Geekie be your guy? Let me know in the comments what you think. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.